Indoor Environmental Quality Credit Interior Lighting. The intent is to promote occupants' productivity, comfort, and well-being by providing high-quality lighting. Most buildings are over-illuminated. They don't take into account available daylight or sunlight, and they illuminate spaces that are vacant. Projects end up with a lot of spaces that just waste energy. Light control not only saves energy, but helps people be more productive and comfortable, as studies have shown. Lighting systems should be studied at the same time as thermal comfort. For this credit, the options apply to the establishment period. There are no performance requirements. There are two options for this credit, each worth 1 point. Option 1, lighting control, and Option 2, lighting quality. For Option 1, 50% of individual occupant spaces must have task lighting, and the building must have lighting controls for all shared multi-occupant spaces. Lighting controls are the primary way to save energy on lighting. First, by reducing operating hours, in other words, switching the lights off. Light control also saves energy by reducing the wattage of the lights while they are on. Dimming lights saves energy, for instance. Lighting control also reduces cooling levels. When you reduce light in a space, you put out less heat in that space. Therefore, you don't need to cool the space as much. The rule of thumb is for every 3 watts you save on lighting load, you save about 1 watt on the cooling load. Also, when you control lighting, you look at controlling the sunlight coming into the building and managing that sunlight to make sure it is not a source of solar heat gain and glare. Light control helps to maximize the effectiveness of sunlight. New in LEED v4 is the individual lighting controls must have at least 3 lighting levels, on, off, and a mid-level. So no more on-off switches only. What they are getting at is allowing each occupant to be able to dim their personal lighting to their own preferences. In these spaces, they want to make sure that you don't necessarily always want to turn on every light. Maybe you only need 2 of the 4 lights on. The mid-level must be between 30 to 70% of the maximum illumination level. Occupants that have personal control of their lighting, meaning the ability to select different light levels for the task they are working on, maintain their persistence and vigilance throughout the day, whereas occupants that don't have personal control have lower productivity. Other studies have shown that people that have control of their lights are more satisfied with their jobs and are less likely to leave. The second option is a little bit of a new idea, and actually gets at the idea that not all interior lighting is created equal. An on-off switch or a dimmer switch is one thing that has some level of controllability, but there are all of these other aspects of light quality that might be beneficial to incorporate into the buildings. There are 8 different qualities that are mapped out, and at least 4 of them have to be in place. 4 of the strategies are based on the characteristics of the light sources themselves, and the second 4 strategies are based on the surfaces of the project and trying to get paint and finishes working together with the light. For Option 2, lighting quality, projects must meet 4 of the following strategies. For lighting system strategies, recessed fixtures have to all be glare-free recessed luminaires in regularly occupied spaces. The entire project must have a CRI of greater than 80, except for special uses. For lamp strategies, 75% of the connected load must have a lamp life greater than 24,000 hours. For indirect luminaires only, less than 25% of the connected load can be direct only in regularly occupied spaces. Again, lighting everything up with the same 2x4, plugging in and reflect from the ceiling. For finish strategies for the walls, ceilings, floors, or furniture, reflectance levels should be approximately 80% on the ceiling, 50% on walls, and 20% on floors. If furniture is included in the scope, the average surface reflectance must be 45% for work surfaces and 50% for movable partitions. For illuminance strategies, For at least 75% of regularly occupied floor area, ceilings or walls should have a 1 to 10 threshold to achieve occupant comfort. The last few are the reflective values of the walls, ceilings, floors, as well as the work surfaces. It's not enough now to just look at the types of lighting that we're including, but the actual reflection values of the finishes that we're putting on the furnishings. We're not just looking at the environment, but the system's furniture and the finishes of the space. Start by having the design team consider the owner's and occupant needs for lighting controls. The energy model and engineers can figure out the optimum design. Automatic sensors are great for turning off the lights when they aren't needed. For lighting quality, from the list of 8, pick 4. The first 2 strategies are more technical, but they are pretty easy given general practices. One of the strategies is that 75% of your connected load has to have a lamp life greater than 24,000 hours. Lamp life is fairly easy to get. For a linear fluorescent lamp, that's not much of a problem. When you look at a lamp life, it usually has a life given for 12-hour starts or 3-hour starts. LEED is only looking at the 3-hour startup. For LED lights, it means looking at the rated life information, which is available for most fixtures. The other point of the strategy is a CRI greater than 80. In general practice, an 80 threshold is not that hard. A CRI of 80 makes the lighting look natural. For the lighting system choices, projects can choose either recessed or indirect. For recessed lighting, you are trying to light the space well and not have any uncomfortable space. The fixtures need to have a certain threshold for brightness. For a lighting designer, this is called luminance, and you are looking for a luminance of less than 2,500 per meter squared. LEED does allow for some exceptions. Only 25% of the lighting can be direct, so you will need to work with a lighting designer in your space to figure that out. The last couple of quality strategies have to do with the finishes of the spaces. High reflectance on your finishes makes the spaces feel brighter, and they are more uniform. Reflection off the surfaces always helps make things feel brighter, and you get more bang for your buck. Since it is a weighted average and 75% of the regularly occupied floor area has to meet the requirements, the project can still have accent walls. The last strategy has to do with luminance. This is how much light is on the plane of the surface. If you can't meet the other strategies outright because you have a little bit more direct light, or you don't have that recess option, this is the option to consider. Run the calculations and see how it meets the criteria. To meet those criteria, you have to pay attention to the surface reluctance of the surfaces and the values. If you do the illuminance strategies, you are required to meet the finish strategies, which means there are your 4 strategies for 1 point. When you light your ceilings and your walls, you're going to compare the ceilings or walls to the values of your surfaces. You're going to need calculation software to do this. We are just looking for a 1 to 10 average ratio. Again, you pick if you want to compare your ceilings to your work surface or if you want to compare your walls to the work surface. In existing buildings, just inventorying all of your lights in your spaces might be kind of onerous. So it's maybe more appropriate for incorporating this into tenant fit-outs or times when you're going to be renovating or doing the furnishings within a space. For the calculations, figure out what percent of workstations have individual controls as a percentage of all of the workstations. Individual workstation is the term LEED uses for private offices and cubes. Bear in mind that term workstation doesn't mean a desk. Remember, the individual task lighting and the shared occupant space lighting needs at least 3 lighting levels. For hospitality projects, guest rooms are assumed to have adequate lighting and aren't included in the credit calculations. Indoor Environmental Quality Credit, Daylight and Quality Views. The intent of this credit is to connect building occupants with the outdoors, reinforce circadian rhythms, and reduce the use of electrical lighting by introducing daylight into the space. It's going to be very difficult on your project to get the maximum points available in LEED without any type of lighting control. If you are shooting for LEED Gold or LEED Platinum, you definitely have to look at lighting control. Not because of the points available in this credit, because what you save in lighting costs from lighting control, you save in cooling load, which also helps with building management. Likewise, a project can't get all of the energy savings points by just doing lighting control. There are two options for this credit. Option 1, daylight measurement, can earn 2 points. And/or Option 2, quality views, can earn 2 points. Achieve illuminance levels between 300 lux and 3000 lux for at least 50% of the regularly occupied floor area. With furniture, fixtures, and equipment in place, measure illuminance levels as follows. Measure at appropriate work plane height during any hour between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Take one measurement in any regularly occupied month and take a second as indicated in the table. For spaces larger than 150 square feet, 14 square meters, take measurements on a maximum 10-foot, 3-meter square grid. For spaces 150 square feet, 14 square meters or smaller, take measurements on a maximum 3-foot, 900-millimeter square grid. For daylight measurement, you are actually measuring the daylight illuminance levels in a certain time of year, and then later take the measurements again. By doing that, you can prove the project is bringing daylight in. The lighting designer will determine where the measurements will be taken, and then use a lighting measure in the actual space to record the data. The IES Lighting Handbook provides more information about light meters. In a small building, this could be pretty viable. In a 1,000,000-square-foot building, it could be quite time-consuming, and there's not that much that you can actually do to add more daylight into an existing building. That should be considered for this credit. If you have to plan for a major alteration and are able to, alter and incorporate designs that provide glare-free vision panels, low partitions, or exterior sun shading to increase the daylighting. Where daylighting is getting light in, views is you looking out. You think, when I'm sitting at my desk in this place, can I see the outdoors? The requirement is to achieve a direct line of sight to the outdoors via vision glazing for 50% of all regularly occupied floor area. Your view glazing in the contributing area must provide a clear image of the exterior, not obstructed by fritz, fibers, pattern glazing, or added tints that distort color balance. What you're going to do is ask, do I have a direct line of sight to the outdoor environment? LEED is looking at that direct line of sight. 50% of all regularly occupied floor area must have views. Sight lines can be drawn through interior glazing. On top of that, your 50% of views must meet at least two of the following kinds of views. Multiple lines of sight to vision glazing in different directions at least 90 degrees apart. Views that include at least two of the following: 1. Flora, fauna, or sky, 2. Movement, and 3. Objects at least 25 feet from the exterior of the glazing. Unobstructed views located within the distance of 3 times the head height of the vision glazing. What that means is if you have a window that is 7 feet tall, that means the head height is 3 times or greater. You have to have a view of at least 21 feet inside the building to the outdoors to an unobstructed view. 3 times the head height of your tallest employees or your windows. Views with a view factor of 3 or greater, as defined in the standard Windows and Offices, a study of office worker performance and the indoor environment. As far as the building design, the project team needs to maximize view opportunities. Install low partitions and interior glazing. In this picture, you can see the offices have little glass walls as opposed to a solid wall. You would need to consider how this affects heat gain or loss. Identify sight lines to exterior views. As we've seen in the definitions, this means areas with direct line of sight to the perimeter of the building's glazing, basically windows or transparent parts of the building walls. Teams must include full-height partitions and other fixed construction items in their drawings, and any items that are in the building before it is furnished. Teams must identify all regularly occupied rooms or areas and determine the total floor area in square feet or square meters. Then teams should use a floor plan and construct sight lines for each window or glazing and determine what areas have direct lines of sight to the outdoors. Remember that movable furniture and partitions can be excluded in this credit and cannot interrupt sight lines. Once the sight lines have been established, project teams need to assess the quality of those views. Each regularly occupied space must have two view types. 1. Multiple lines of sight 90 degrees apart. 2. Views of at least two of flora, fauna, or sky, movement, and objects at a minimum distance from the exterior of the glazing. 3. Unobstructed views located within the distance of 3 times the head height of the vision glazing. 4. Views with a view factor of 3 or more as defined in the guide, Windows and Offices, a study of office worker performance and the indoor environment. A view factors is a measure from 0 to 5 of the amount and quality of views within a 90-degree cone of vision from an individual workstation. Looking at the USGBC calculator shown is really helpful. Determine the total regularly occupied area for each space, the area with direct line of sight to the outdoors via vision glazing, and the first and second view types. When at least 2 view types have been identified for all possible regularly occupied spaces, the calculator will determine if at least 75% of the regularly occupied space and floor area meets the credit requirements. For warehouses, the requirements need only be met by the office portion of the building. For the bulk storage, sorting, and distribution portions of the building, meet the view requirements for 25% of the regularly occupied floor area. EQ prerequisite, green cleaning policy. The intent is to reduce levels of chemical, biological, and particulate contaminants that can compromise air quality, human health, building finishes, building systems, and the environment. Many cleaning products contain chemicals that are harmful to full-time building occupants and maintenance staff, as well as plants and animals. Green cleaning products are often of the same cost and quality as non-green products. There are 2 options for this credit. Option 1, in-house green cleaning policy, and Option 2, certified cleaning service. For your in-house green cleaning policy for the establishment period, have in place a green cleaning policy for the building and site addressing the green cleaning credits, goals, and strategies, and personnel listed for the credit. At a minimum, the policy must cover green cleaning procedures, materials, and services that are within the building and site management's control, and include the organization responsible for cleaning the building and building site. The policy must address the requirements of EQ credit, green cleaning, purchase of cleaning products and materials, and EQ credit, green cleaning, cleaning equipment. The goals and strategy of the policy are to establish standard operating procedures addressing how an effective cleaning and hard floor and carpet maintenance system will be consistently used, managed, and audited. Address protection of vulnerable building occupants during cleaning. Address selection and appropriate use of disinfectants and sanitizers. Develop guidelines addressing the safe handling and storage of cleaning chemicals used in the building, including a plan for managing hazardous spills and mishandling incidents. Develop goals and strategies for reducing the toxicity of the chemicals used for laundry, warewashing, and other cleaning activities. Develop goals and strategies for promoting the conservation of energy, water, and chemicals used for cleaning. Develop strategies for promoting and improving hand hygiene. Develop requirements for maintenance personnel. Specifically address contingency planning to manage staffing shortages under a variety of conditions to ensure that basic cleaning services are met and critical cleaning needs are addressed. Include a process to obtain occupant and custodial staff input and feedback after contingency plans are implemented. Determine the timing and frequency of training for maintenance personnel in the hazards of use, disposal, and recycling of cleaning chemicals, dispensing equipment, and packaging. For the performance portion, for option 1, you have to implement the policy you created. There's also this new idea that you can get these certification programs for cleaning services that have come about. Instead of just being able to get the product certified, whole services can be certified. You can say that Company X's green program uses all of these compliant products and has all of these appropriate practices as a part of the service offering. You can get a shortcut by contracting with the company to provide a certified cleaning service to you. Clean the building with a cleaning service provider, either in-house custodial staff or a contracted service contractor, certified under one of the following: Green Seal's Environmental Standard for Commercial Cleaning Services, GS 42, or International Sanitary Supply Association, ISSA, Cleaning Industry Management Standard for Green Buildings, CIMS GB, or local equivalent for projects outside the U.S. If you use a certified cleaning service, confirm that the building was audited by the third party within 12 months of the end of the performance period. In addition, the cleaning contractor must develop goals and strategies for promoting the conservation of energy, water, and chemicals used for cleaning the building. Set goals for green cleaning maintenance specific to your project's usage patterns. Implement standard operating procedures for floor maintenance, outlining strategies for hygienic hand washing, handling, and storing of cleaning chemicals, training your staff, and assessing the success and limitations of a high-performance cleaning program. Although there is no required minimum level of performance, the policy should be adhered to once it has been established, and performance should be demonstrated in the related credits. Remember the timing for this prerequisite. The green cleaning policy should be drafted and signed by the custodial manager and/or the owner by the start of the performance period. EQ Credit Green Cleaning Custodial Effectiveness Assessment. A cleaner facility results in fewer health problems. A facility's cleanliness can also affect visitors' perceptions. Projects can benchmark custodial spending because a benchmark is established as part of this assessment and audit. This credit is following your green cleaning policy and actually going around and making sure that spaces are cleaned to a minimum specification. This is a green cleaning version where we're switching to all these green products and practices, and then we're going to perform this effectiveness test to prove that they work as well as the conventional products that they replace. The standard is the APPA Audit Protocol, which was developed for higher education institutions. So when you're trying to apply that to other types of project types, there can occasionally be some quirks to it. Basically, there are different requirements for how you evaluate different kinds of spaces. Mostly, you're looking at hard surfaces or carpeted surfaces. In restrooms, there might be additional things that you're evaluating for. In a Class A office building, you are definitely going to pass your APPA inspection without problems for the most part. And other classes of buildings, maybe you will run into some areas that need to have enhanced attention in terms of cleanliness. The only reference standard for this credit is the Custodial Staffing Guidelines as part of APPA, the Association of Physical Plant Administrators. This was introduced in 1992 and has 5 levels of cleanliness. It uses visual inspection to evaluate cleaning performance. The visual inspections, or audits, result in an overall building cleanliness score. APPA does not specify who must conduct the audit. However, an objective audit must be done. This can be by an independent third party or 2 individuals working separately. In the latter case, the overall score for your building is determined by averaging the 2 auditors' results. There are several steps to this implementation. Assess the floor plan per APPA. Randomly select spaces to be audited and ensure that each space type is representative. Identify the auditors. Develop an audit analysis for each space type. Conduct the audit. Calculate the overall score by aggregating the averages. Identify areas for improvement. The calculation for this credit involves the APPA scoring system, which consists of 5 appearance and weighting factors. Level 1 is orderly spotlessness. Level 2 is ordinary tidiness. Level 3 is casual inattention. Level 4 is moderate dinginess. Level 5 is unkempt neglect. Project teams should perform their audit after they have enacted any green cleaning policies, programs, or procedures. APPA custodial effectiveness assessment is conducted during the performance period. Remember, you have to get a 2.5 or lower to achieve this credit. EQ Credit Green Cleaning Products and Materials. The intent is to reduce the environmental effects of cleaning products, disposable janitorial paper products, and trash bags. There's one point related to products and materials. This requires that at least 75% by cost of your products and materials purchased for cleaning meet one or more of the product standards. The product categories covered in the credit include cleaning products, disinfectants, polishes, strippers, janitorial paper products and trash bags, and hand soaps. The standards used are pretty similar to the previous rating system standards. The standards to meet include ones like Green Seal certification, having recycled content in paper products, environmental choice products, and so on. There are dozens of standards for these different categories and products, so we won't list them all. When purchasing cleaning materials, specify one or more of the criteria listed in the requirements. Work with contractors to make sure they meet the sustainability criteria, then obtain written documentation from cleaning and janitorial services. Do this to confirm that their products meet the specified standards. Materials and supplies must be purchased during the performance period to count towards this credit. Remember that among the materials purchased, 75% by cost of the total annual purchases have to adhere to one or more of the environmentally friendly procedures and criteria we discussed. You do have to perform the calculations on a whole building basis. So if you have tenants that buy their own products and materials or do their own cleaning service, you are expected to try to aggregate their information into the mix. Or you have to extrapolate their purchases and assume all of them were the conventional, non-compliant versions. To maintain compliance with the credit, collect MSDS sheets or other documentation indicating the sustainable attributes of the product during the performance period or recertification period. The MSDS should list the relevant standard and sustainable attributes of the product. EQ Credit Green Cleaning Equipment. The use of conventional powered cleaning equipment has negative impacts, including waste production, emissions, noise pollution, damaged indoor surfaces, and the degradation of IEQ. Selecting sustainable cleaning equipment saves energy and avoids emissions of microscopic particulates, reducing stress on building systems, electronic equipment, and building occupants. High-performance janitorial equipment often costs more than conventional equipment, but some of the environmental benefits will help offset that initial cost. For establishment, create an inventory of existing interior and exterior equipment, including what is brought on-site by vendors. At least 40% of all powered janitorial equipment purchased, leased, or used by contractors must meet the sustainability criteria. All equipment must include safeguards, ergonomic design to minimize vibration, noise, and fatigue, environmentally preferable batteries if applicable. Vacuum cleaners must be certified by the Carpet and Rug Institute Seal of Approval Green Label Vacuum Program and operate with a maximum sound level of 70 dBA or less in accordance with ISO 11201. Carpet extraction equipment for restorative deep cleaning must be certified by the Carpet and Rug Institute Seal of Approval Deep Cleaning Extractors and Seal of Approval Deep Cleaning Systems program. Powered floor maintenance equipment, such as vacuums, guards, or other devices for capturing fine particulates, must operate with a maximum sound level of 70 dBA, in accordance with ISO 11201. Propane-powered floor equipment must have high-efficiency, low-emissions engines with catalytic converters and mufflers that meet the California Air Resources Board or EPA standards for the specific engine size and operate with a sound level of 90 dBA or less, in accordance with ISO 11201. Automated scrubbing machines must be equipped with variable speed feed pumps and either 1. Onboard chemical metering to optimize the use of cleaning fluids, or 2. Dilution control systems for chemical refilling. Alternatively, scrubbing machines may use tap water only, with no added cleaning products. For existing equipment that does not meet the criteria, develop a phase-out plan for its replacement with environmentally preferable products at the end of its useful life. You don't have to replace it before the end of its useful life. You can keep using it until it's dead. This mostly involves getting an inventory of your equipment together, evaluating it against the criteria to see which items comply and which do not, and coming up with an eventual replacement plan. Develop and implement a program for janitorial equipment. Prepare a purchasing policy which specifies sustainability criteria. Work with your current vendors and contractors, identifying appropriate replacement equipment for future purchases, then keep a log of the equipment, record the date of purchase and which sustainability criteria were met. Remember, 40% of equipment purchased, leased, or used by contractors must meet at least one of the sustainability criteria. Keep a log for all powered equipment. Document the date of equipment purchase and all the repair and maintenance activities. Include the vendor's cut spec sheets for each type of equipment in use. EQ Credit Integrated Pest Management. Keeping pests out of the building helps with durability and keeps the harmful chemicals needed to control pests away from occupants. An IPM plan may cost more up front, but it can decrease liabilities. For this credit, again, you have to have this in-house policy or the idea of contracted with a third-party certified service provider. The plan is going to include identification of an IPM team, provisions for identifying and monitoring pests, action thresholds for all pests likely encountered in the building, non-chemical pest preventive measures, pest control methods to be used when action thresholds are exceeded, a mechanism for documentation of inspection, monitoring, prevention, and control methods, and for evaluation of the effectiveness of the IPM plan, and a strategy for communications between the IPM team and the building occupants. For record keeping, an IPM tracking tool must be created that allows you to track pest name, monitoring method, monitoring schedule, responsible party, pest prevention, prevention measures, threshold for action, name of the product applied, toxicity of the product, date and time of application, date and time of notification, if it was an emergency application. The overall responsible party will record each pest that is reported by tenants in the IPM tracking tool. The pest control vendor will record the applicable items from each site visit in the IPM tracking tool. On an annual basis, performance will be evaluated against the goals specified in the plan. If the goals are not being met, adjustments will be made to this plan in order to facilitate goal achievement. If adjustments to the action thresholds are necessary, the overall responsible party will work with tenant contacts and the IPM vendor as necessary in order to appropriately adjust the action thresholds. The contracted service provider's third-party credentials available for the credit are GreenPro, EcoWise, or Green Shield. If you do not go with a contractor, you use the method of working with your pest management vendor to come up with a hierarchy of strategies that reserve toxic pesticides for the least toxic application that you deploy after you've tried everything else in terms of prevention, monitoring, non-toxic intervention, and so on. The IPM plan must address integrated methods, routine site inspections, and maintenance. The IPM is typically more effective than spray-intensive pest control because you find the underlying cause of the pest problems rather than just treating on a scheduled basis. Make sure the occupants are not leaving food out that attracts pests. Give occupants 72 hours notice before normal sprayings. This ties back to the communication system. If there is an emergency spraying, notify the occupants within 24 hours. Finally, record keeping is required to meet compliance for this credit. EQ Credit Occupant Comfort Survey. Surveying can minimize energy use related to the building commissioning, therefore reducing the factors related to energy production. Employees are more productive if they're happy and comfortable. Employees are less likely to leave if they enjoy their office space. HVAC systems are the largest end use of energy, sometimes wasted energy for the sake of comfort. Staff has to take the time to deal with complaints from dissatisfied and uncomfortable occupants. These surveys and corrective actions require an upfront investment, but can lower operating costs in the long run if they reduce the negative impacts of poor indoor environmental quality. Administer an occupant comfort survey and the complaint response system to collect anonymous responses from a representative sample of building occupants. A sample must comprise of at least 30% of the total occupants, and it must include an assessment of their satisfaction with building performance and identification of comfort-related items. The survey should address acoustics, building cleanliness, indoor air quality, lighting, and thermal comfort. Project teams will need to implement the survey and the complaint response system, then document the survey response and the corrective actions that were taken. Develop and implement a corrective action plan to address comfort issues if the results indicate that more than 20% of occupants are dissatisfied. Perform at least one survey and implement corrective actions. At a minimum, perform one new survey at least once every 2 years. This credit is for putting feelers out to see how happy your occupants are with your building. You have to have a certain response rate from the occupants for a random sample, and if 20% or more of them are unhappy in any given area, you're expected to take corrective actions in order to provide better occupant comfort. There are some parameters there. Usually, 20% is a threshold. That means if there are one or two people complaining incessantly, hopefully it's not going to show up as over 20% of the population as unhappy with this issue. Occasionally, 20% of the population might complain about something that you can't control, like the neighbors next door are noisy or whatever. So there is some leeway in terms of what you're actually expected to take correct action around. Asking occupants their opinions on things is quite a can of worms. So oftentimes there's a real resistance to this on the part of the property managers or facility managers. There are a number of synergies with indoor environmental quality. See if you can find the synergies here for minimum indoor air quality. Generally, the location of the site and the quality of the air on the outside will have some impact on the quality of the air inside. Additionally, the material choices and chemical use in the building impact the quality of indoor air, as well as how the systems are maintained. If nobody ever changes the air filters, indoor air quality would not be good. Increased costs from proper or increased ventilation can be offset by proper strategies. Increased ventilation dilutes contaminant concentrations, so sometimes there is an adverse effect on thermal comfort and increased energy use. Strategies to offset these costs include energy recovery ventilation, economizers and controls, CO2 monitors, demand control ventilation. Dense neighborhoods, heavy vehicle traffic, and site contamination can adversely affect the quality of outside air. If you follow the EPA's I-BEAM requirements for integrated pest management, that will help with EQ Credit Integrated Pest Management. Other related credits are the energy and commissioning credits. Because IEQ programs are linked to energy systems and energy expenditure, we have to look at these other energy and atmosphere credits. When you bring more fresh air to help flush out pollutants, sometimes you have to add on to and recommission the system. This will affect your energy performance marks. Similar to lighting control, thermal comfort credit is related to the energy and commissioning credits. The commissioning agent's going to note the number of controls. Ideally, it's about people's comfort within the space. When people are uncomfortable in their space, they don't like it and they leave. Green building is intended to make people happy indoors, and making them too cold, which makes them uncomfortable or sick, is the wrong direction. Allowing ample daylight into a building can indirectly improve occupant comfort through views and directly increase building energy performance by reducing energy from electric light. As energy rates rise, energy savings becomes more and more important to the bottom line. Ample daylight reduces the need for electric light, but can also cause heat gain, which can raise HVAC costs. Daylight has to be admitted judiciously to balance light and heat. For daylight, this credit relates to optimized energy performance, because if you're using daylight to light the space, you can use less electrical light. You could also bring in more heat with the light and have to do more cooling. This concludes the presentation. Thank you for listening.